Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing. It is Friday, the 25th of October. Sorry, we were a wee bit late. We had a couple of technical issues there to iron out before we do it. You know, it's one way to start a Friday, then when technology doesn't work. I think it's already stopped for the weekend, but hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. My name is Ryan McGinley, at the Ryan McGinley on the X handle. Today, I'm delighted to be joined back in Scotland by A Haggerty 10, otherwise known as Tony Haggerty. Tony, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, Ryan. Thank you very much. Good to be back. Always good to go away, but it's always good to come back, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. As much as it's good to go away, yeah, returning home, returning to what you know, and back to domestic matters for Celtic. Now, I think we need to start today's podcast with a bit of sad news breaking. A former Celtic player has passed away today at the age of 78, Tommy Callaghan. I'll just read out the statement that Celtic put out in full because I'm not that familiar with the player, so I'll just read it out in full so that people that are a bit older than me can remember this player. But everyone at Celtic Park was saddened to hear that former player Tommy Callaghan passed away early this morning, Friday, at the age of 78. Cowdenbeath born Tommy signed for Celtic from Dunfermline Athletic in November 1968, and in doing so made history in being signed by Jock Stein twice, as it was Stein who also signed Tommy for the Fife team in 1962. Midfielder Tommy made an immediate impact on his debut by scoring against Partick Thistle at Thurhill. That was the first of 34 goals in 264 games he played for Celtic between then and joining Clydebank in 1976. Over Tommy's time in the Hoops, Celtic lifted 6 titles, 5 Scottish Cups and 3 League Cups. His heart was always at Celtic Park and he was still a regular at every game as a matchday host with the club. Thoughts and prayers with everyone at Celtic or with Tommy's family and friends at this sad time. I think we echo that, Tony. A sad day when one of Celtic's former players passes away, but quite a career he had in the Hoops.
Yeah, and you're talking about, I think, older people, and I mean this in the nicest possible sense, like Steve McGrory, who's a regular contributor, will be able to maybe put some meat on the bones of Tommy's Celtic career, because it was just before my time. I know that you might be shocked to realise that, Ryan, but yeah, that was the season. I think that was just the season before I started going when he left. I started going to Celtic Park 76, 77, Kendall Leachy's last season. So that's probably about the only player I remember from that era. But Tommy was just before my time. But yeah, by all accounts, an accomplished midfielder for Celtic, and you know you've got something and you're talented if Jock Stein signs you twice. I think that stood out to me there when you were reading the Celtic statement. But yeah, as always, when sad things happen and a member of the Celtic family passes away, they will be fondly remembered by those who were fortunate enough to see Tommy play. And it's some medal haul from his time there, Ryan. That's not so bad, isn't it?
These are the players that installed the winning mentality into Celtic
Yep.
to begin with. I think that Celtic really started being that dominant force under Jock Stein, and I think that's then carried on. Yes, there's been moments in which Celtic have been through difficulty, particularly financial difficulty in the 90s, but it's these players in the 60s and the 70s that installed that winning mentality. And these players were around the club when the 90s were going on, and they were still trying to install that belief in the players, even though it wasn't happening every season. And then I think we've got a lot to be thankful for these players that really started that winning role, because this is the way that Celtic are now, and these standards are upheld and kept.
And I love the fact that they also mentioned that he was a regular at Celtic Park, hospitality, doing the rounds and stuff like that. That's a wonderful way to always be remembered. And I think if you've served Celtic with distinction at all, you should be able to do the rounds in hospitality. I think that it's something that Celtic should look at and make every player who played for the club in any shape or form should offer them that chance to do the rounds at hospitality. It's just something I think that's very important. It's important to myself, and I think that courtesy and that privilege and honour should be extended to a lot of the players out there who maybe don't are not part of that hospitality rounds and going around tables and stuff, and making the experience at Celtic Park for a lot of people who maybe are going for the first time a more memorable one. And so my thoughts about Tom and his family. I think his son became a footballer as well, and I think his son's. I think he was known as Tam. I think He became a football agent too, so thoughts go out to everybody connected with the Carlton family, and our condolences to them. But I'm sure that those of a older persuasion will be able to regale you with tales of Tommy and his daring do on the park for Celtic, but quite an distinguished and accomplished medal holder and career that he had with Celtic.
Yeah, and if anybody watched him in person or watched him through the telly as well, then please let us know. Let us know what he was like as a player and a person as well. If you met him, we'll try and bring up as many comments as we can today. Tony, Celtic are back in domestic action this weekend against Motherwell. They need to get back to winning ways. They've drawn the past 2 games against Aberdeen, and in a bit more respectfully against Atalanta. That great result in Bergamo that you were lucky to be at on the night. Back to Motherwell. Always a difficult game at Motherwell, I believe. Celtic like to leave it late a lot of the times in Motherwell. Hopefully
Did
that
last
isn't the
season.
case. Yeah, absolutely. I remember Lewis Palmer scored his first Celtic goal. And then Matt O'Reilly, fresh off of signing his contract, scored in the 97th, 98th minute.
Yeah.
That was my very first away game covering at the Celtic Way. And what a game to choose. Didn't look after Blair Spittle scored, who always seems to score against Celtic. Hopefully that isn't the case for Hearts this season. I thought that maybe Celtic were going to drop points, but they kept on going. And they asked the referee, I believe, how much time they had left. Matt O'Reilly asked how much time they had left. And then he scored that wonderful goal, that wonderful sort of volley that came into him from Greg Taylor's cross, I believe. Yeah, it's Motherwell have had a good start to the season, Tony. They look to be doing quite well under Stuart Kettlewell, who I believe is doing quite an underrated job at Motherwell. It's difficult to get things going. I've seen ups and downs throughout watching Celtic and Motherwell through the years, just by watching them in the Scottish Premiership. But they seem to be doing well this season under Stuart Kettlewell. A wee bit of continuity. It'll be a difficult game for Celtic at the weekend.
Yeah, it'll be a difficult game for Celtic, Ryan, but I think the confidence surge that Celtic will have gotten from Wednesday night's result will see them through. I think Celtic will get back on the saddle now in terms of domestically and in Europe. I just think that's the players know that they're a good side, and you just need something to kickstart a lot. Kickstart you back into action. Celtic had a particularly bad 20 minutes against Aberdeen, dropped 2 points. But for a large majority of the Aberdeen match, they were actually very good. The stats will tell you that as well. But even the eye test told you that. And then the other night, they defended superbly. And we spoke about it on the podcast. We said with a wee bit more cohesion in the last third, they could have won that match. Could have sneaked it 1-0. But again, we were talking about the learning processes. Maybe that's one for the future, Ryan, where Celtic, if they do manage to play a top European side and they're playing that same way, the whole learning, the next part of that learning and progress and development is that they do snatch it 1-0 or are clinical when they get a chance, because Celtic never really created a clear-cut chance, did they, against Atalanta and Bergamo the other night. So that's part of everything that's coming in. I think the confidence and adrenaline surge they'll get will carry them through. Normally you worry about the Euro hangover and stuff like that. People, it's been christened as, but I'm not worried so much about Sunday, because I think there'll be a freshen up, and I think McCowan's going to start. I think there'll be a certainty to start at Fir Park. Plot spoiler for starting 11, but I think he deserves it as well. I think you might find Bernardo will be charging about that midfield as well, Ryan. And I think Kyogo might start too, because I think those substitutions were made at the right time the other night when Celtic grew into the game the last 20 minutes that we spoke about again. And as traditionally difficult as Motherwell made it, well, we'll say traditionally difficult, but they made it certainly difficult. Fir Park last season, both games, Ademida had to come on and bail Celtic out in the second game at Fir Park. But yeah, I think Celtic now, the bits between your teeth after Wednesday night, and I think they'll win comfortably. Actually, at Fir Park, just something tells me that.
I'm pretty confident as well, Tony. I echo your statements or your sentiments rather. I think there's a debate to be had with who plays up front, because you look at Adam Eder and what he brought to the team last season against Motherwell, as you quite rightly
Yeah,
said. He got Celtic out of a hole. You've also got the game against Dundee on Wednesday at home as well. So I think you'll see two different strikers, one playing each game. I think you'll see a wee bit of rotation,
yeah,
unless one of them does extremely well and you need to start. You need to start him in the next game 3 days later. But what I would say is that Adam Eder scored against both of those sides
yeah.
last season, and both of them were towering headers. I remember against Dundee, and then obviously the one against Motherwell was an absolutely massive goal to get Celtic back into the game. I just think that maybe Sunday could be an opportunity to give Adam Eder a wee bit more game time and see how he fares, because I don't think he can build any sort of momentum at this moment in time if he's
Yeah.
coming in and out of the side. Um, it's a
And
difficult one leaving Kyogo on the bench, but at the same time, I would quite like to see either start a game again against maybe not a lesser opposition. I know they're not as good as Atalanta, that very much is clear, but I'd like to see different facets of his game against Motherwell and really see him scoring a couple of goals and making him feel pretty good about himself up front. Would you agree with that, Tony?
and I actually felt the other night lots of people have varying opinions about Adam Eder's performance on Wednesday night.
Well, what
I
did you
actually
think,
did
Tony? Because
okay.
you were at the ground, you watched
I
it close
actually
up.
thought I actually thought he did okay. He did a lot of running. He ran the channels, and he tried to give them problems. Again, I go back to his ball retention wasn't great, but he was marshalled brilliantly by number 4, whose name escapes me again. Ryan, you need to.
Isaac Keane.
That's the fella. Sometimes you're up against a technically better defender. Italian teams are known for their defenders being excellent. So Adam had a tough task, but I go back to his ball retention could have been better in his distribution, but he's propelled into that team for his first start in the Champions League. It's a whole new level for him. It's a learning experience, but he did get you up the park at times, and there was an out ball. When Celtic were looking forward, and he does cause problems. Granted, he didn't cause enough problems as you would want, but I'm not having this that he was a non-contributor and he was a waste of a jersey. Well, some of it takes a while at times. I thought
I do
he
find
looked.
that the takes get wilder as Celtic play in Europe, because the dynamic of the game changes when Celtic aren't favourites in a game, I believe. And
Yeah,
this isn't me having a go at anybody, because people say that some of my takes are wild. Yeah, I was the one that was defending Arne Engels thanks to stats yesterday on my Stats Bomb report, available on the Celtic Way website. A lot of people have read that already, which is absolutely brilliant to see. But you do find that the takes get a little more out there when it's Europe and Celtic aren't the dominant team, and games are viewed in a different lens.
and sometimes you come up against a defender of class. And Isaac Keane was class. He really was. But again, my take from that is I hope Adam does learning then. So if you're learning from a class defender, you'll kind of look about and say, okay, his positioning was there. I need to do this the next time I play in a game of this magnitude or I come up against a player of this calibre. But it was certainly there. He gave his all in terms of his effort and application. And I know these are prerequisites, but he could easily have chucked it and just no bothered. But he chased lost causes and he tried to be the link-up guy when the ball was coming. Again, ball retention was suspect at times, but he's learning. He's learning to play, and that's what I think the manager was saying to him, "Big man, I need you to learn this role now, because you might be featuring in it more prominently moving ahead," right? And I agree with all that, right? He has he's got it there in abundance. We've seen it before, but he's got it there in abundance against Scottish domestic opposition. This is a real step up in class. And, so I wasn't too perturbed about what Adam Eder brought to the table. I thought, okay, you are raw. You're very raw at elite club level of football. I get that, but you're only going to learn. And he'll get confidence from taking part in a team that got a result. So you think to yourself, okay, the next learning and progress and development for me is trying to be the man who scores that goal that wins that game 1-0 and help the club, help the team fashion a chance on an evening like that and be the difference maker. That's what Adam Reeder has to think of, because now he's got that game under his belt at that level. That's another box tick for him. Relax on it now. You know what's required. You know the standard that's required, and you know the standard that you're coming up against in these type of games. So I was chuffed that Adam Reeder got that game, but now I want to see him say, okay, and maybe you're right. Maybe Fir Park is a game for him to come on. I just thought Kyogo looked really, really bright and gave Atalanta a problem again, because conversely, they were thinking we can win this game, and then they thought, wait a minute, who's this wee guy that's came on? We've got problems here if they let him run about. And he did okay for his cameo performance, Kyogo, I thought.
He actually had statistically Celtic's best chance of the game. The shot that he lifted over the bar, that was statistically Celtic's best shot. It wasn't the one that got closest, because Alexbay had a massive deflection, and the goalkeeper did really well to keep it out. It looked as if it was looping in, maybe a couple of yards further back, and it would loop straight into the back of the net. But I thought he was pretty good on the night. Do you think he? There's your next discussion point. Alexbay. Well, it looks as if Greg Taylor isn't going to be fit for this game. Although we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers today. You've got to keep him in the team, haven't you?
Alexbay has to play if Greg Taylor can't make it. I know that sounds obvious, but he's grown, isn't he? He's maturing into the player that you think, there's something about you. And, he produced the other night. He was part of a defence that shut out Atalanta and looked good at times. There were times when he was under the cosh a bit. Lots of crosses were coming from his side. But you know what? Going forward and linking the play and getting involved, he'll do for me, Ryan. He was quite solid, and he proved that he can be relied on. All the players proved that they can be relied on now after that. As I said on Wednesday night after the game, that's a real bar that's been set high. You cannot fall below that now, because if you do, you will suffer. It's as simple as that. And that, they have that template where you're going to be under the caution. You can defend. They proved to themselves that they can play at this level. And now there's that transitioning back to domestic level. But you have to realise that, you've drawn the last couple of games. And Trusty mentioned the Aberdeen game as well when he was speaking. So I think the players are still kind of smarting from not picking up all 3 points from that game, and they want to get back onto the domestic horse or domestic saddles, I've said, and say, right, let's go again, a second wind in terms of the league form and the league campaign.
Yeah, that sounds all good to me. It's all about getting back on the domestic horse and getting those 3 points that are required. Obviously, Aberdeen was disappointing, helped by the fact of the result a little under 24 hours later in Kilmarnock. But Celtic and Rangers are playing at the same time on Sunday afternoon. Rangers are playing at home to St Mirren, I believe, and Celtic are away to Motherwell. So it'll be interesting to sort of keep an eye on the scores as they go on. I know that there's a bit of a gap between Celtic and Rangers at the moment, but I think we're all kind of expecting Rangers to stabilise at one point. You would expect and really mount some sort of challenge. That's what you go into every season thinking. It might not turn out that way. Aberdeen might stay for the course, but Aberdeen have an opportunity on Saturday to really put some pressure on both Celtic and Rangers by winning another game and extending their run, or their unbeaten run. I know it's not a complete win run because they drew with Celtic, but it's a chance for them to put more pressure on. I think you'll really see tomorrow just how much Aberdeen are going to be players in this game, because it feels as if the onus is on them now to put that marker down and see if Celtic and Rangers can respond to that. But yeah,
this is their chance to apply scoreboard pressure, right? Mm-hmm. This is when these are games that clubs like Aberdeen need to win, as you say, in order to see if they'll last any course or any distance. And they'll put a lot of energy into last weekend, and to bring themselves back into it. But would it surprise you if Aberdeen lost for the first time this season in this game? It wouldn't surprise me, because these are the kind of things that happen. They get themselves so up for a game against Celtic and they play particularly well in a spell and gain something from it. But then they they've got the chance to really apply pressure.
It's a
And
difficult
somehow,
game as well, Tony,
yeah,
because it's against Dundee United at Pittodrie. Dundee
and
United have had a tremendous
they're,
start to season
they're
too.
flying high as well. So it's the kind of game I'm saying that Aberdeen could get the proverbial bloody nose, red nose, excuse the pun, whatever we want, isn't it? And you can potentially see that happening, or their bandwagon rolls on and they claim another scalp, and you say, okay, fair play to you. But it wouldn't surprise me if Jim Goodwin's men took points off them or won that match. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me, because this is the way that football in this country tends to work. When you get a challenger who eventually falter against somebody, and they will falter against somebody, because they got a lot of luck last week as well. Aberdeen too, so at times. So yeah, it would. It'll be an interesting one, Matt. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend of football. You've also got the Edinburgh Derby as well to look forward to,
The
which is
bottom two,
funnily enough
Ryan. The bottom
11 v 12. I know that's just shows you how
It's
crazy this league
astonishing to see
table
that,
is
isn't
at the moment. It is absolutely astonishing. You just look at the league table at the moment. So Celtic are in first with 22 points. Aberdeen are joint first with 22 as well. Celtic's goal difference is far superior. They've got 21 to Aberdeen's 9. You've then got Rangers on 16 points. So that is 6 points behind. Then you've got Dundee United, who are a point behind Rangers on 15, who you've got to remember, they're a promoted side from last season and they're having a tremendous start to the season. I actually thought they could have got something against Rangers at Tannadice. I watched that game, and if they were a little bit better in front of goal, they would have got something. And then you get Motherwell on 13 points. So it's going to be a difficult game at the weekend. Motherwell started the season well. They're in 5th place, but Celtic are expected to go and get the job done and get 3 points and hopefully extend their lead, if not level it with Aberdeen.
Yeah. Listen, it's a right weekend of intriguing fixtures, isn't it, in Scottish football? This weekend, there's lots of subplots going on, isn't there? There's lots of ifs and buts and maybes there. I know. I don't pay particular attention to others because we focus on Celtic, but the table could look a wee bit different on Sunday, couldn't it? With various players getting various results. So that's the intrigue for us all. But it's actually a cracking calendar of matches this weekend. Looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, I'm okay with every other team sort of taking points off each other as long as Celtic keep on winning and moving further ahead in the table. I want Celtic to get a bit of a gap starting
Yeah.
on Sunday. Fingers crossed that can be the case, and Aberdeen have dropped points, and it means that Celtic can then take the initiative at Third Park. They don't need any more motivation, but that could be an extra source if they're going into that game knowing that they could go further ahead of Aberdeen at this point in time. Tony, I realise that you're just back from Bergamo. How was that trip as a whole? How much did you enjoy that? Being in Italy, being at the game, the travelling as well. How did you enjoy that experience as a whole?
I've said before, being Italy's a wonderful country. It doesn't really matter where you go in Italy. It's just full of wonderful architecture and history, and just it's very picturesque. And I wasn't. I didn't think it would be that warm. It was roasting, despite it being October. But yeah, it's the travelling was fine because the only problem was getting from Milan to Bergamo, but managed it no problem. The buses, but there aren't many taxis functioning in Bergamo. Let's put it that way. I was told an incredible stat for those people that like their stats that at any given time in Bergamo there's only 40 taxis operating. Most places are within walking distance. Takes you a wee while because walked it back from the stadium both the day of the press conference and the night of the football match. So because you just can't get a taxi for love nor money at that time of night. So yeah, but a wonderful experience, topped off by the result, and it was a pleasure to be there. And these are the times that you enjoy the most, and you feel fortunate and privileged, and blessed to be able to do what you do for a living. It's never lost on me. That's the bonus ball for doing what you do. But as everybody knows, we worked hard that day, Ryan. We were still going strong at what time? 11:30 at night, your time,
It's
12:30
12 at
at
your time.
at
Yeah.
so, and that's not a complaint. That's just, I wouldn't want to do anything else, but it's hard work too. You got to remember you just don't turn up. There's lots of writing behind this, lots of creativity and other various things that go into doing what we do. And that's why we're as passionate as we are about it, and we love what we do. And my thoughts are for you going to Zagreb, because it'll be your first trip away with Celtic, and I can't wait for you to experience it all for yourself, because once you do it, you'll not want to stop doing it. It's and it is a labour of love, and that for me, the result at the end of it topped it all. Dortmund for me was spoiled. People were asking about the yellow wall and all that, and I said it ceases to be an attraction when you're watching your team getting, hammered at that level of European football, and then having to write about it too. It became a joyless experience. So the other night was just joyous, and watching your team perform to that high level, and it was great. So everything about it was great. And I said to you before off air, didn't I, after one of the briefings, that Anthony Antonio and all that, and the dark hair, there must be some Italian in my family tree somewhere, because it's a country that I like visiting, and I've never had a bad trip whenever I've
I've
been
never
on.
been before.
So,
I'd love to go.
you have to plant your flag somewhere. I would recommend Bergamo, but yeah, my next world to conquer in Italy is Naples. I have to go to the Diego Maradona Stadium at some point.
It's a pilgrimage for Tony, to anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah,
An absolute pilgrimage to
that's
Maradona land.
that's on my to-do list. But yeah, it was, as I say, the working part of it was brilliant because of the result at the end. And as I say, I can't wait for yourself to experience it, because you'll love it, and you'll be looking forward to that. And I hope Celtic, you'll luck out. You'll get the beginner's luck. You'll get to see that elusive away win. It's a certainty.
I
Fingers
hope
crossed.
so. What I would say though is that it's not a foregone conclusion, because
No, it's
they are
not.
also Dinamo Zagreb, and this is quite interesting. They've actually stabilised from that. I think it was 9-2. They get beat 8-2, 9-2 against I
Yeah,
think it was 8-2 against Bayern Munich. Someone can correct me if it was 9.
9-2 was right.
Was it 9-2? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've actually managed to get 4 points from their next 2 games. They've done really well to stabilise, and they're on the same points total as Celtic, so they're very much a competitor to one of those playoff spots. If you know anything about Dinamo Zagreb, any good Croatian midfielder that you've seen over the past 10 or so years probably started their career at Dinamo Zagreb, an incredible academy they've got of players. They know their scouting network. It's incredible for such a small place. You can count other countries. I mean, Holland, the Netherlands isn't that big either, and they produce loads of big players. But Croatia, for such a small place or a small population, the concentrated levels and the amount of good footballers that they create, and a lot of them come through Dinamo Zagreb. So it's not a foregone conclusion, and I'm looking forward to sampling Zagreb and everything that's got to offer. There was another talking point that I wanted to speak about, Tony, and it was at the right back position, because now we've seen at the end of the game, Alistair Johnson biting into what I think was I don't know, one of these energizers, one of these chocolate bars or energy bars or whatever you call them. But he didn't go off on a stretcher, but at full time, he sank to the floor, an exhaustion or injury. Do you think that this could be a game for Anthony Ralston at the weekend, especially, well, if Alistair Johnson hasn't pulled through and he's got an injury, then you would expect him to play, wouldn't you?
If he's injured, you take no risks or chances with
Yeah.
him. But Alistair Johnson's one of those players that you have to save from themselves at times, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't he? He said himself, even if I'm not 100%, I still want to play. So maybe that you have to take that decision out of his hands if he's not 100%. But if he's 100%, he'll play. He'll want to play. But I've no qualms about throwing Ralston in. And tiredness can be a factor, particularly for the defensive guys, because they perform some shift. And Alistair Johnson in particular, who was booked very early against a referee who's trigger happy with cards, and we found that out to our cost in the Feyenoord game last season. So I thought Johnson was terrific. One, he managed to stay in the park, and two, the shift that he put in. So he will have earned a rest. But if the manager says to him, "Do you want a rest?" you know what he's going to say. He's going to say no. But as I say, you have to take that decision out of players' hands at sometimes. And I think in terms of maybe freshening it up, Ryan, the manager might want to do that, because I don't think you'll ask the same four guys to play against Motherwell because of the exertions of Wednesday night. Could be wrong in that, but Ralston could be one of the changes that come in, and possibly Cameron Carter-Vickers coming in as well. But you'd be loath to move Trusty at this point in time after Wednesday night. He was a colossus, wasn't he? But again,
I really want to see Trusty and Cameron Carter-Vickers in the same team now.
Yeah.
After seeing, I think we've
Scales
seen
is
the
immense.
level now.
Once
Yeah,
it-
I know.
how can you move him?
Play a back three then. I don't know, play wing backs or
Yeah,
something,
agree.
but play all of them.
Shoehorn them in. Well, you know my thoughts on that, Ryan. If they're good enough, you enough good players, you make a way or find a way of getting them in. But yeah, interesting the defence on Sunday. But I think those guys, they just take a good look at themselves in the mirror and say, if we can keep that quality and calibre of opposition out, clean sheet. I mean, unbelievable. Nobody would have predicted that Celtic get a clean sheet against Atalanta at all. So those guys can turn around and say, job well done, but it's no finish there. You now have to, raise it again. You have to go again. And that's the nature of it, of matches at Celtic. I mention this a lot. It's that continual peaking, Ryan. That continual energy levels, adrenaline levels. See, when you're at Celtic, it is utterly relentless. You know what it's like as a supporter, right? You've got a 0-0, right, third part, you've got to step on it again. Players are human. It was Ange Postecoglou that said players aren't robots. No, they're human. But sometimes you treat them as though they're robots. They should be going to third part and getting a result. Why? Okay, they should be going to third part and getting a result. But at the end of the day, they've still got to perform. And they're playing against a team who are going to peak to a certain level, so you need to keep matching that. You have to do that every week in a domestic game for Celtic because of that expectancy, and it's heightened at a club like Celtic. It's fever pitch at a club like Celtic. There is no hiding place. You saw what happened last week. They dropped 2 points of the season in an absolute humdinger of a football match, and people still weren't happy. Yet you could win that game 3-2, 4-2, 5-2, 6-2 on any other day. They didn't score that third goal. These things happen, and they've taken a bit of criticism for that. That's the nature of competitive sport. It's the nature of football. Atalanta will take criticism for the other night because it was Celtic, probably. And they've looked around at other teams who've been able to take goals off Celtic, and Atalanta didn't even score. So imagine the ferocious criticism they're going to get. But
Italian media as well, who are very unforgiving to teams.
So everything on its merit, I guess. So I'm looking forward to Sunday because I want to see that reaction now from the other night. That's what's going to intrigue me more, and also the personnel that plays, because you need to bring some energy now, don't you? Because a lot of that was expounded the other night, so you have to freshen it up in certain areas. And again, the manager's got all that in hand, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Yep, he's got everything in hand, and we'll see what sort of team he goes with on Sunday. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Tony, or have we covered absolutely everything to do with Celtic for now?
I recommend Bergamo. Put it on your to-do list. It's a beautiful place. But no, I think we've covered everything. As I say, I was just fortunate enough to experience that, and I'm glad that I did. It's one of the best Celtic results away in Europe in recent memory. So it was great to be there.
Yeah, I definitely need to check it out when I go to Italy at some point. It's not an if, it's a when I go to Italy. I don't know when, but we'll see. Fingers crossed that Celtic can maybe get Atalanta again in the coming years, and I can witness that and sort of experience that as well. Thank you very much to everybody that joined us on the morning briefing this morning. Sorry we were a wee bit later. There was some technical issues that we just couldn't get past, but we managed to get on as quick as we could, Tony. If you want to support our work just that little bit more, you can join our YouTube members channel for just £2.99 a month. With that, you'll receive early video access, priority comments, an exclusive members chat function. Press that join button next to the subscribe button. A big thank you to everybody that's subscribed. We are now well over 12,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody. Now we push for 13. Unlucky for some, but hopefully it's lucky for us. Let's keep on going and make this community and this channel as big as possible, and make sure that comment section gets even busier and busier with the live stream and the post-match comments as well. Tony, is there anything you want to say to the subscribers who have managed to get us over the line?
Oh, tremendous. They never cease to amaze me. And as I say, we've built up a wonderful community, and lots of familiar names that come in the chat function commenting, despite having not met them. You just feel as if you know them. That's how comfortable you are with them, and it's how comfortable they are with us. And we've always said that we never take it for granted. It's a pleasure and honour, a privilege to do that, and none more so than the last few days that I've experienced. But that's the payoff for doing what we do. But we try, and I've said before, be as honest, as passionate, as humorous as we can, and we hope we bring that to the table. And I think the most humble thing for us is that people are tuning in, and the subscription numbers are hitting those kind of levels, and people who tell you that they enjoy what you do. That's just that. That's the most humbling part for us, and we're delighted at that. And we're not going anywhere. We'll keep doing it. So and I also wanted to pay tribute to the young man to my left as I'm looking at who always says to me before we leave, "Don't worry, I've got your back." The old man of Hoy here can have some technical issues at times, but the man there, and so that's why I say he's particularly deserving of going to Zagreb, and I can't wait for him to experience it all for himself. But yeah, we've just been working over a year together, but something seems to have clicked, and we're a wonderful team. Old man, young man, whatever way you want to call us, I don't really care. But I'm indebted to young Ryan for helping me out more than you'll ever know, guys, more than I'd ever care to share. But just wanted to mention that. All right, sir.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And likewise to you. I think we both help each other out just as much with everything that we do, both during games and with the daily work that we do together. But I think there's a good dynamic between the two of us, and I hope that comes through in the live streams as well, both in the matches and in the morning briefings as well. Thank you to everybody that joined us this morning. We really appreciate it. We will be back potentially later on, time dependent on that, on if we can get the press conferences out. If not, the next time you'll see us will be at Thurr Park on Sunday afternoon. It's not a morning. We're not on in the morning. It'll be about 10 to 2, I think, will be 5 minutes after the team comes out. So we'll be live then. Be sure to join us for your pre-match or your pre-match thoughts and pre-match previews and the like. We will be live from predictions, team lineups, what you're thinking, what other people are thinking as well. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll be back, as I said, at those times. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your weekend, and fingers crossed Celtic get the 3 points on Sunday. Thank you very much, guys.